The colony ship Exodus Dawn drifted through the cold darkness of space like a wounded animal. Its engines had died 3 days ago. The lights inside flickered on and off. The air was growing thin and cold. 12,000 human beings huddled inside, waiting for death. Captain Maria stood on the bridge and stared at the endless black void through the window. Her hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady for her crew. They were too far from Earth, too far from any human station. Their distress signal flew outward into space, but she knew the truth. No one would hear it in time. No one would come. In the lower decks, families held each other close. Children asked their parents why it was so cold. Parents lied and said everything would be fine. Old men and women closed their eyes and made peace with their God. Young couples held hands and whispered promises they knew they could not keep. The ship had been humanity's great hope. 12,000 brave souls leaving Earth to start a new colony on a distant world. They had said goodbye to everyone they loved. They had watched Earth grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Now they would die in the space between stars, and no one would ever find their bodies. Captain had stopped eating 2 days ago. She gave her food to the children. Most of the adults had done the same. They rationed the water carefully, but it did not matter. The cold would kill them before thirst did. The life support systems were failing. In maybe 4 days the would run out completely. She had written letters to her family, letters that would never be sent. She told her mother she was sorry for leaving. She told her sister to take care of their father. She told her daughter back on Earth that she loved her more than all the stars in the sky. Then she deleted the letters because what was the point? On the 3rd day, something appeared on their sensors. Lieutenant Park called out from his station, his voice cracking with disbelief. Ships were approaching. 5 ships moving slowly through the void toward them. Captain rushed to the screen and stared at the readings. The ships were small. Their snorts technology looked old and outdated. They did not match any human design. First contact with alien life was happening, and humanity was about to die. The communication screen lit up. A face appeared. It was not human. The creature had large, gentle eyes the color of amber. Its skin was covered in soft gray fur. Its features were delicate, almost fragile. It looked like something between a deer and a rabbit, with long ears that twitched as it studied the humans on screen. The creature spoke. The words were strange at first, but then the translation software caught up, and Captain heard a soft, kind voice. We received your signal. We are the We Have come to help you. Captain could not speak. Her throat closed up with emotion. She gripped the console to keep herself from falling. Our ship is dying. She finally managed to say, our engines are gone. We cannot move. We have 12,000 people on board. The on-screen tilted its head. It seemed to be thinking. Then it spoke to someone off-screen in its own language. When it turned back, its large eyes were full of something that looked like sadness. We see your situation. Your ship is very large. We are a small people. We only have 5 vessels, but we will try. Captain watched as 3 of the 5 ships moved into position around the Exodus Dawn. They attached cables and towing devices. They connected power lines to feed energy into the dying human ship. The lights steadied. The air grew warmer. Children stopped shivering. But something was wrong. Captain could see it on the sensors. The ships were Straining, their engines were not designed for this. Warning lights flashed on the alien vessels. One of them was leaking fuel, another was showing signs of engine stress. She contacted the ship again. The same gentle face appeared. Your ship said, urgently, they are being damaged. You cannot sustain this. You will destroy yourselves. They looked at her with those large, sad eyes. Yes, we know our ships are old. We do not have many. After this we will only have 2 left. Our ability to travel between stars will be nearly gone. Felt her heart break. Then why are you doing this? You do not know us. We have nothing to offer you. We are strangers. There was quiet for a long moment. Then it spoke, and its words would echo through human history forever. We remember what it was to be small and afraid. Many ages ago our world faced a great disaster. We sent signals into the void begging for help. No one came. We survived, but barely. We lost so much. We lost so many. The creature paused, and its ears drooped. We decided then that if we ever heard someone else crying in the darkness, we would answer. We would not let another species feel the loneliness we felt. Captain was crying now. She did not try to hide it. We can never repay you for this. We do not want payment. We only want you to live. Perhaps one day when you are strong and another species is weak, you will remember this moment. You will remember that kindness costs everything and nothing. For 9 days the 3 ships towed the Exodus dawn through space. They moved slowly, carefully, their old engines screaming in protest. One ship's engine failed completely. On the 6th day the crew evacuated to the other vessels, and the dead ship was left behind, drifting forever in the void. On the 9th day they reached an outpost. It was small and simple, nothing like the grand stations of the elder species. But to the humans aboard the Exodus Dawn, it looked like paradise. They gave them food, they gave them water, they gave them medicine and blankets and a place to rest. They asked for nothing in return. When the elder species of the galaxy heard about the rescue, they laughed. They called the foolish. They said no rational species would sacrifice so much for strangers. They said nothing. They simply helped the humans repair their ship and wished them well on their journey. Before the Exodus Dawn departed, Captain met with the elder who had led the rescue. The old creature was small and frail, its fur turning white with age, but its eyes were still bright and kind. I swear to you, said her voice thick with emotion, humanity will never forget what you did. For us, we will carry this debt for as long as our species exists. If you ever need us, we will come, no matter what it costs, no matter how long it takes. Elder smiled gently. You do not owe us anything, dear child. We did what was right, that is enough. But shook her head. No, you do not understand. Humans, we remember, we always remember. Your kindness has bound our species together forever. One day we will prove it. The elder looked at her for a long moment, then reached out and touched her hand with a soft furred paw. Then I hope that day is peaceful. I hope you never need to prove anything. I hope kindness remains a gift, not a debt. The Exodus Dawn left the outpost and continued its journey. The colony was eventually founded. The 12,000 survivors built new lives on a new world, and they told their children about the gentle aliens who had saved them. They told they built monuments, they created holiday, they wrote songs and stories and poems. 200 years passed, humanity spread across. The stars, they built fleets in. Colonies and stations, they became a power in the galaxy, and they never forgot, though, not for a single day. 200 years had passed since the rescue of the Exodus Dawn. Humanity was no longer a small species struggling to survive. They had grown, they had spread across dozens of star systems, they had built mighty ships and great cities on distant worlds. The galaxy had noticed. The elder species of the Galactic Council watched humanity with curious eyes. These strange beings from a small blue planet had risen quickly. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the most advanced, but there was something about them that was different. Humans were persistent. When they failed, they tried again. When they fell, they got back up. When they faced impossible problems, they found impossible solutions. Other species called them stubborn, reckless, emotional, but no one could deny that humanity was growing stronger with each passing decade. The Galactic Council was made up of 12 elder species. These were the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. They had existed for thousands of years. They had seen young species rise and fall like waves upon a shore. To them, humanity was just another newcomer. Useful perhaps, interesting certainly, but nothing special. The council met in a great chamber at the center of the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of species came there to discuss trade and treaties and the endless business of civilization. Humanity had earned a seat at the table, though not a very important one. They were tolerated, not respected, accepted but not feared. Ambassador Helena Vance represented Earth at the council. She was 60 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes the color of steel. Her grandmother had been a child on the Exodus Dawn. One of the 12,000 saved by the Helena had grown up hearing the story. She had memorized every detail. She had visited the memorial on Earth where the names of the rescuers were carved in stone. Every year on the anniversary of the rescue, humanity celebrated Remembrance Day. Schools taught children about the gentle aliens who had sacrificed their ships to save strangers. Families lit candles and spoke the names of the elders. It was not a small holiday. It was one of the most important days in the human calendar. Other species found this strange. Why would humans celebrate a debt? Why would they remember something that happened so long ago? The galaxy operated on trade and power, not sentiment. Kindness was a transaction, not a sacred bond. But humans were different. They remembered. They always remembered. The meanwhile had not fared well over the 200 years. They were a small species from a small world. Their planet was poor in resources. Their technology had always been limited. After sacrificing 3 of their 5 ships to save the Exodus Dawn, they had been left with almost nothing. The galaxy had not been kind to them. The elder species ignored them. Younger, more aggressive civilizations pushed them aside. They had no military. They had no power. They had nothing to offer except their gentle nature and their kind hearts. Their population shrank. Their young people left to find better lives on other worlds. Their cities grew quiet and empty. The galaxy forgot about them, but humanity did not forget. For 200 years, humans had been quietly helping they sent ships carrying food and medicine. They sent Teachers and engineers, they built. Hospitals and schools on them, they asked for nothing in return when other species questioned why humanity wasted resources on such a weak civilization. Humans simply smiled and said nothing. The elder who had led the rescue was still alive, kept breathing by human medicine and human doctors. She was ancient now, her fur completely white, her body frail, snorts, but she remembered the day her ships had towed the dying human vessel to safety. She remembered Captain's promise. She had never expected the humans to keep it. On the other side of the galaxy, a storm was building. Snorts, the dominion of Thrace was an empire built on conquest. They were a warrior species, tall and powerful, with scales like armor and eyes like burning coals. For centuries, they had expanded their territory by force. They took what they wanted. They crushed anyone who opposed them. The Galactic Council feared the Dominion, but they did not stop them. The elder species had learned long ago that some battles were not worth fighting. They let the Dominion take smaller civilizations. They looked away when innocent species were enslaved. Peace was more important than justice, they told themselves. The Dominion had recently discovered something valuable. Deep beneath the surface of the there were rare minerals, precious materials that could power advanced weapons and ships, materials worth more than the entire civilization. The Dominion sent a message to the It. Was not a request, it was a command. Surrender your world, leave your homes, become subjects of the Dominion, or be destroyed. They had no army, they had no weapons, they had nothing but their gentle hearts and their fatting hope. They sent a message to the Galactic Council begging for protection. They reminded the elder species of their long history of peace. They asked for mercy. They asked for help. The message also reached Earth. Admiral Helena Vance read it in her office on the human colony world of New Geneva. She read it 3 times. Then she contacted the leaders of humanity across all their worlds. Conversations were short, the decisions were quick. Humanity had waited 200 years for this moment. They had built their fleets, they had trained their soldiers, they had prepared for a war they hoped would never come, but they had always known it might. Helena Vance sent a message to thee. It was only 4 words long. We are coming. Wait. Then she boarded her flagship and began the journey to the Galactic Council. She did not go to beg for help. She did not go to ask for permission. She went to deliver a message across human space. Ships began to move. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Pilots checked their weapons. Engineers ran final tests on engines and shields. And quiet determination spread through humanity like fire through dry grass. The elder species did not notice. They were busy with their own affairs. They did not see the human fleets gathering. They did not hear the quiet prayers spoken in 100 human temples, all asking for strength to repay an old debt. They waited on their small dying world. They watched the stars and wondered if anyone would answer their call. They did not know that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day the Exodus Dawn was saved. They did not know that every human child learned about thee in school. They did not know that their kindness given freely 2 centuries ago had planted a seed that had grown into something powerful and fierce. They did not know that humanity remembered everything, and humanity never let debts go unpaid. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room in the known galaxy. It stretched for kilometers in every direction. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform filled with representatives from hundreds of species. The ceiling was made of crystal, showing the stars above. It was meant to remind everyone how small they were compared to the universe. Today the chamber was full. Word had spread that they had requested an emergency session. Most species came out of curiosity, not concern. There were nobody. They had nothing. Why would the council waste time on them? The representative stood on the central platform. She was young by her species standards, though still older than most humans ever lived. Her gray fur was neat, her amber eyes bright. With desperate hope, her voice trembled as she spoke. Honored members of the council, she began, my people face extinction. The Dominion of Thrace has demanded we surrender our world. They want the minerals beneath our soil. They do not want us. They have given us 30 days to leave or be destroyed. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species nodded in sympathy. Others looked bored. We have no army, they continued. We have no weapons. We cannot defend ourselves. We come to you, the protectors of galactic peace, and we beg for your help. Please do not let our people die. She fell silent. Chamber waited. Ambassador arose from his seat. He was a reptilian creature, tall and cold, with scales the color of dried blood. His species had been on the council for 3,000 years. They were masters of politics and manipulation. Himself was known for his sharp mind and sharper tongue. The council sympathizes with the, he said, his voice smooth and emotionless. However, we must consider the practical realities. The Dominion of Thrace is a powerful empire. Opposing them would mean war. War means death. Death means instability. The council exists to preserve peace, not to fight battles for every small species that faces difficulty. The representative looked like she had been struck. You would let them destroy us for peace? I shrugged his scaled shoulder. The galaxy is vast. Species rise and fall. This is the natural order. The council cannot save everyone. We must make difficult choices. Other representatives began to speak. Some expressed mild regret. Others agreed with a few, suggested that they could simply relocate to another world, abandoning everything they had ever known. No one offered to help. The vote was called. It was unanimous. The council would not intervene. They would face the Dominion alone. The representative stood frozen on the platform. Tears ran down her furred face. She had come with hope. She would leave with nothing. And then a voice rang out across the chamber. The council has made its decision. Now humanity will make ours. Every head turned. Admiral Helena Vance stood in the human section, her silver hair bright under the crystal ceiling. She was not a tall woman, but in that moment she seemed to fill the entire chamber with her presence. She walked down to the central platform, her boots echoing in the sudden silence. The representative stepped aside, staring at the human with confusion and faint hope. Helena looked up at the thousands of faces watching her. She took a deep breath and spoke. 200 years ago, a human ship called the Exodus Dawn was dying in deep space. 12,000 of our people faced certain death. No one heard our cries for help. No one came to save us. No one. Except that she paused, letting the words sink in. They had 5 ships, old ships, weak ships, ships that could barely travel between stars, they sacrificed 3 of those ships to save strangers they had never met. They crippled their own civilization to rescue people who could offer them nothing in return. They asked for no payment. They expected no reward. They simply believed it was the right thing to do. The chamber was absolutely silent. Eva had stopped his whispering. The council asks why it should help. The Helena continued. The council talks about practical realities and difficult choices. The council says it cannot save everyone. Her voice hardened. Humanity does not accept this. They saved us when we were weak. Now they are weak and we will save them. This is not politics. This is not strategy. This is honor. This is who we are. Stood up, his reptilian face twisted with scorn. And how exactly do you plan to accomplish this, human? The Dominion has 400 warships. Humanity has perhaps 200. You will be slaughtered. Your species will be crippled. And for what sentiment? A debt that no one remembers. Helena turned to face him directly. Her eyes were cold and steady. We remember, she said simply. Humanity always remembers, and you are wrong about our fleet. We do not have 200 ships. We have every ship, every soldier, every weapon humanity possesses. All of it is going to the system, all of it. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions and objections. This was madness. This was suicide. No species risked everything for another. It went against every rule of survival. Helena raised her hand, and somehow the chamber fell quiet again. The council has made its position clear. You will not help. We understand. We are not asking you to change your minds. We are not asking for your ships or your soldiers. We are telling you what humanity is going to do. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species after species. We will go to the system. We will face the Dominion. We will fight. Maybe we will win. Maybe we will lose. But we will not abandon the people who saved us. We will not forget the kindness that gave our civilization a chance to exist. I made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are fools. You will throw away everything your species has built for a debt that themselves have probably forgotten. Helena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we are fools, but we are fools who pay our debts. She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back over her shoulder. One more thing. Ambassador, you asked for what we are doing this. The answer is simple. They did not save us because it was smart. They did not save us because it was practical. They saved us because they believed that kindness matters, that helping others matters, that the universe should not be ruled by the strong crushing the weak. Her voice dropped to something almost gentle. Humanity believes the same thing, and today we are going to prove it. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the representative was crying again, but this time the tears were different. The Galactic Council sat in stunned silence, watching the human ambassador disappear through the great doors. In the darkness of space, human fleets were already moving. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled was racing toward a small, forgotten world to defend a gentle species that had once shown them mercy. The galaxy had never seen anything like it, and it did not know what to think. The Dominion fleet arrived at the system on a cold morning. In the human calendar, 400 warships dropped out of faster than light travel. Their weapons charged, their commanders confident. Admiral U.S. stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled with rows of sharp teeth. This would be easy. They had no defenses. The conquest would take hours. Then his sensors showed him what was waiting. The smile died on his face. Between the Dominion fleet and hung the entire military force of humanity, 347 warships, 80,000 fighters, 2 million soldiers ready to die. They had arrived 3 days earlier and taken position in a perfect formation. They were not running, they were not hiding, they were waiting. Admiral U.S. stared at the readings for a long moment. His officers shifted nervously around him. This was not supposed to happen. No species had ever risked everything for another. It went against nature. It went against logic. Open a channel, he commanded. The screen flickered and he found himself looking at a human woman with silver hair and steel eyes. She sat calmly in her command chair, surrounded by officers who showed no fear. I am Admiral of the Dominion of Thrace, he said. You are blocking our lawful expansion. Remove your fleet immediately, or you will be destroyed. The human woman tilted her head slightly. I am Admiral Helena Vance of the United Human Fleet. We are not moving. You cannot win this battle. I said we outnumber you. Our ships are more powerful. Your entire species will be crippled if you fight us. Here probably, Vance agreed, but we are not leaving. Us felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Confusion. Why they are nothing. They have no value. They cannot help you. They cannot protect you. Why would you die for them? Vance's expression did not change. 200 years ago they saved 12,000 humans. They sacrificed their own future to give us a chance at survival. They asked for nothing in return. They simply helped us because they believed it was right. She leaned forward slightly. We remember, Admiral. Humanity always remembers, and we pay our debts. The channel closed. Stood in silence, processing what he had heard. Then he shook his massive scaled head. It did not matter why the humans were here. They were in his way. They would be removed. All ships, he commanded, attack. Formation, destroy them. The battle began. Dominion ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Human ships answered with fire of their own. The darkness of space lit up with explosions and energy beams. Ships died in the first minute, both human and Dominion. Debris scattered across the void, but something was wrong. The Dominion ships were stronger. Yes, they had better shields and bigger weapons, but the humans fought differently. They fought like nothing us had ever seen. Human pilots flew their fighters directly into Dominion gun positions, sacrificing themselves to create openings for their companions. Human captains rammed their damaged ships into enemy vessels instead of retreating. Human soldiers launched boarding pods and fought hand-to-hand through Dominion corridors, refusing to stop even when mortally wounded. Dominion captains sent a panicked message to us. They will not die. We kill them. And they keep coming. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. What are these creatures? Us had no answer. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Vance watched the battle unfold. Her ship shook with impacts. Damage reports flooded in. Good people were dying all around her. She felt each loss like a knife in her heart, but she did not order a retreat. All ships, she said calmly into the fleet communication system. Remember why we are here. Remember the debt. Hold the line. Across the human fleet, soldiers heard her words and fought harder. A pilot whose fighter was crippled aimed his burning ship at a Dominion cruiser and fired his thrusters. A captain whose vessel was surrounded ordered her crew to abandon ship, then overloaded her reactor to take 3 enemy ships with her. Soldier with both legs broken crawled through a corridor with a grenade in each hand, looking for enemies to take. With him, the Dominion had fought many wars, they had conquered many species, but they had never faced anything like this. Hours passed, the battle continued, bodies floated in space among the wreckage of ships, the hung silent. Behind the carnage, its people watching the sky and praying for the strain. Aliens who had come to save them. By the 3rd day, the Dominion had lost 100 ships, humanity had lost 112. US was shocked. His fleet should have won by now. His superior firepower should have crushed the humans in hours. Instead, he was bleeding ships and soldiers at a rate that terrified him. He opened another channel to Vance. Human, he said, and for the first time there was something like respect in his voice. You have fought well, but this cannot continue. We will both be destroyed. Let us negotiate. Vance's face was tired. Her ship had been hit 17 times. Her uniform was stained with the blood of her officers, but her eyes were still steady. There is nothing to negotiate. You came to enslave a people who once saved us. There are no terms. There is only this. She paused. Leave, leave and never return, or we will follow you home. Us felt a chill run through his scaled body. You would pursue us after losing so much. We would chase you to the end of the universe. Vance said quietly. We would spend every ship, every soldier, every resource we have. We would hunt you for generations. You hurt the end. That means you hurt us. There is nowhere you could hide. There is nothing that would stop us. The channel closed again. I stood on his bridge and made a decision. He had never retreated from a battle in his life. The Dominion had never retreated from anything, but looking at the burning wreckage, looking at the relentless human ships still fighting despite their losses, he understood something. The humans were not fighting for territory. They were not fighting for resources. They were fighting for something else, something he did not understand. And that made them more dangerous than any enemy he had ever faced. All ships, he said the words bitter on his tongue. Withdraw. The Dominion fleet turned and fled. 400 ships had arrived, 263 left behind them. The human fleet did not pursue. They simply watched the enemy run, too damaged to chase, but too stubborn to fall. The battle was over. It had lasted 9 days. Humanity had lost 141 ships and nearly 500,000 soldiers, but there was safe. On the surface of the planet, the people emerged from their shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw human ships hanging in orbit, battered and broken, but still there, still protecting them. The ancient elder, who had led the rescue 200 years ago, stood in a field outside her home. Her white fur moved in the gentle wind. Her old eyes were full of tears. They remembered, she whispered. They actually remembered. In space, Admiral Vance slumped in her command chair. Her hands were shaking. Now that the battle was over, she had lost so many good people. The cost had been terrible, but they had done it. Humanity had repaid its debt, and the galaxy would never be the same. News of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Every species with access to the communication networks. Watch the recordings, they saw the human fleet standing alone against the Dominion. They saw the 9 days of brutal combat. They saw the humans refuse to retreat, refuse to surrender, refuse to abandon the small, gentle species they had come to protect. Galactic Council called an emergency session. The Great Chamber was fuller than it had been in centuries. Every representative wanted to see the humans. Every species wanted to understand what had happened. Admiral Helena Vance stood on the central platform. Her uniform was new, but the exhaustion in her eyes was old. She had barely slept since the battle ended. She had spent days writing letters to the families of the dead, honoring each soldier who had given their life for the council stared at her in silence. No one knew what to say. Finally, Ambassador arose from his seat. The reptilian diplomat descended to the platform and stood before the human woman. His cold eyes studied her face. You won, he said, against all logic, against all reason. You won. Vance nodded slowly. We did. You nearly destroyed yourselves, a continued for a species that cannot help you, that has nothing to offer you, a species the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. He paused, his scaled face showing something that might have been frustration. Why? I have asked this question many times and I still do not understand the answer. Vance was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. Because they helped us first, because that is who we are, because debts of kindness are the only ones worth dying to repay. I stared at her. For once the master diplomat had no clever response. He simply stood there processing her words. My people, he said, finally wronged another species long ago. We thought it was forgotten. We thought no one remembered. Vance met his eyes. Then perhaps you should find them and make it right. I was silent for a long time. Then slowly he nodded and returned to his seat. Around the chamber, representatives shifted uncomfortably. Many of them were thinking about their own histories, their own old debts, their own forgotten cruelties. The session ended without further discussion, but snorts. The conversations continued in private chambers and quiet corridors. Species began reaching out to others they had wronged in the past. Old treaties were reopened, old wounds were addressed. Humans had not just defended, though. They had reminded the galaxy that the past does not disappear just because it is convenient to forget. 1 week later, the ancient elder traveled to Earth. It was her first time leaving her in over a century. Human doctors kept her alive through the journey, monitoring her frail body with constant care. She arrived to find millions of people waiting for her. They lined the streets of the capital city, standing in respectful silence. Children held flowers, adults held signs thanking them for saving their ancestors. Old veterans of the recent battle stood at attention, saluting the small white-furred alien who had made their civilization possible. The elder was overwhelmed. She had expected nothing. She had asked for nothing, and here were billions of humans celebrating her species and mourning the soldiers who had died to protect them. She stood before a vast crowd in the central plaza and spoke in her soft, gentle voice. 200 years ago we saved 12,000 humans. We did not think about the future. We did not calculate the cost. We simply saw people in need and chose to help. She paused, her old eyes Scanning the massive crowd, today, humanity numbers 30 billion. You have spread across the stars. You have built wonders we could never imagine. Her voice trembled with emotion. We did not save a ship. We saved a civilization. And you remembered, against all reason, against all expectation, you remembered. The crowd was silent. Many were crying. The elder looked up at the sky, at the stars that had once seemed so vast and cold. Perhaps kindness is not weakness. After all, she said quietly, perhaps it is the strongest force in the universe. The crowd erupted in applause that lasted for nearly an hour. Far away, in the territory of the Dominion of Thrace, a diplomat prepared for a journey. He had been sent to Earth to understand the humans. His commanders wanted to know their weaknesses. They wanted to know how to defeat them if the two species ever clashed again. He spent months among the humans. He studied their history. He watched their children play. He listened to their stories and their songs, and slowly he began to understand something that his commanders would not want to hear. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. There were stronger species. Humans were not dangerous because they were smart. They were smarter species. Humans were dangerous because they remembered. They remembered every kindness. They remembered every cruelty. They built monuments to their debts and taught their children to honor them. A species that helped humanity became a friend for eternity. A species that hurt humanity became an enemy that would never be forgotten. Before he left, the diplomat met a human child in a park. The little girl was playing near a statue of a ship. He sat down beside her and asked a simple question: what makes humanity strong? The child thought about it for a moment, her small face serious. Then she smiled. We do not forget who helped us, she said, and we do not forget who hurt the ones we love. The diplomat returned to the Dominion and delivered his report. His recommendation was simple: do not make enemies of humanity, and pray you have not already wronged someone they care about. The Dominion leaders read the report with concern. They thought about the species they had conquered, the civilizations they had crushed, the planets they had burned. Had any of them been connected to humanity? Had any of them shown kindness to humans in the past? They did not know, and that uncertainty kept them awake at night. Across the galaxy, in 100 capitals, 100 governments began searching their histories. They looked for old connections to humanity. They looked for debts unpaid and kindnesses unreturned. They looked for evidence that they had ever wronged someone that the humans might care about. Some found nothing and relaxed. Others found troubling records and began making quiet plans to correct old mistakes. A few founded. If it was already too late, the galaxy had learned a new lesson. Power was not just about ships and weapons. It was about memory. It was about loyalty. It was about bonds that could not be broken by time or distance. Humanity had shown them the truth. The species that remembered its friends, that honored its debts, that would burn worlds to protect those it loved, was more dangerous than any empire built on force alone. And in human schools, children still learned about that. They still lit candles on Remembrance Day. They still grew up knowing that 200 years ago, gentle aliens had sacrificed everything to save their ancestors. The story would never be forgotten because humanity always remembered. And in a galaxy full of ancient powers and Mighty empires, that simple fact was the most terrifying thing of all.